This is Professor Porter, and I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what's going on in the NFL with the potential labor standoff. I know I briefly touched about on it in class, but wanted to go over some of the particulars. So, for those of you who don't follow football and just kind of want to be in the know, you can understand what's going on and why there might potentially be a lockout. The reason why there's probably going to be a lockout, the number one reason is the fact that the owners have opted out of their CBA, their collective bargaining agreement with the players, and they're threatening to lock out the players for the upcoming season. The league last year produced $9 billion, and the owners think that the players get way too big a share that they receive as a result of the last CBA. So unless the players give up some of the money in this new CBA, that they're willing to take less of a cut, then the owners feel that that's worth going on strike for. The owners argue that the players got too good of a deal the last CBA, and with rising costs, they need to get their money back. The biggest issue that's going on why the owners are taking the stance that they have is it all relates down to stadium financing. Cities used to pay for stadiums, and when they did build stadiums, they would also be a combination of baseball and football stadiums. So it was easier to recoup your money because you had a lot of activity going on within the stadiums. And, once again, you weren't paying for the stadium up front. Cities were taking on that cost. But nowadays, if you want a stadium, it's being built by the individual owners. And not only that, within football, they're just strictly football stadiums. And as you know, relatively speaking, football has a shorter season, and they've got to make up all that money to maintain that stadium within the season. So this is a huge expense that the owners feel is something that they deal with now that they did not have to deal with when they agreed to terms in the last CBA. The second issue that's coming into play for the owners is the fact that player costs have also grown. So, although they admit that revenues have grown, they feel that the relative cost to paying players, outfitting players, maintaining everything related to players has grown since the last CBA. Currently, the owners and players split the revenues. The owners get $1 billion off the top. And of the remainder of the money that's left, roughly 60% then goes to player salaries and benefits. What owners want is a new agreement, and what it says is that they want another $1 billion off the top, so technically $2 billion off the top every year for the next 7 years. Many of you may not be aware, but the NFL is a 501c nonprofit entity. And they have a phenomenal business model. Revenues last year, once again, were $9 billion. More people watch the NFL draft than the playoffs in some other sports out there. So people really are in love with football, and players and owners feel confident that the revenues will continue to rise. And so it is worth fighting for every penny you can get within this current collective bargaining agreement. As to every story, there are two sides, and so the players' take on things real quick are that they play for an average of 3.4 years. So their lifespan within the NFL is not long, and so they need to maximize as much money that they can get while they're in there, unlike owners who can have a team, for the rest of their lives. They also feel that there's a misconception that post-career health care is taken care of by football. If I'm not mistaken, the NFL does take care of players for, I think, 5 years after they retire, but then after that point, it's up to the players to maintain their own health care. And as you know, some of the injuries that happen within football last with a player for the rest of their lives. Players were happy with the old deal, but owners are asking for them to give back. And the players' union, makes the case that players need every dollar they can get in the deal to deal with life after football. So, for the most part, bets are on that there will be a strike because this is all about money. But because we're talking the fact that they brought in $9 billion last year, many anticipate that if there is going to be a strike, if there is going to be a labor standoff, it will hopefully go quickly because that's a lot of money that won't go into anyone's pockets if they are on strike. So hopefully you enjoyed that overview of the NFL player strike, and I will talk to you later in class.